All right, go on.
I'm hearing a little interview. Anyway, feedback, but I'm having, I know I'm going to have a wonderful chat. If they can understand my English, a wonderful interview with singer-lutenist Claudia Caffagni. Where's Claudia? Claudia's in the red.
Sì,
Yeah, exactly. And singer Rebecca player. I hope I have that somewhat correct. Help and violist Elisabetta de Mircovich, and we will learn a whole lot more about these instruments. We're talking about an incredible, really, ensemble, La Reverdie, and we will discuss that name. It apparently has a special story to it, the ensemble La Reverdie, and it's an Italian group performing polyphonic medieval and Renaissance music. Very, very interesting to all of us who are even professional musicians, excuse me, even though it's a very esoteric area of our profession. So I'm going to rely on Claudia and Lisbetta to help us. This is an Arcana Recordings 2019 release, as in practically yesterday. It is a beautiful CD recorded in a marvelous, small, acoustically gorgeous church near Bologna, San Teonisto, and in Treviso, the city there. I hope I'm close to pronouncing these properly. Here's the album. Everybody, take notes because you will recognize some of this. We in music all know Francesco Landini, 1330 to 1397. Everybody in music knows about the Landini cadence, and we'll talk about that. So he rose to international and immortal fame for this amazing manner of cadential movement. Excuse me. Francesco Landini, who was also, among many other things, was not just a composer, but was also a major poet. We'll talk about the laurel that was placed upon his head once upon a time, or so the story goes. And now, the title of the CD, and I'm sparing everyone my horrible Italian, but the title in English is "The Eye of the Heart." Can you say that for me in Italian? It's such a beautiful assemblage of words.
insieme. L'occhio del cor.
L'occhio del cor, the eye of the heart. Okay, and this is here's the ensemble: Claudia and Elisabetta, as we have already been introduced. Livia Caffagni, mother, sister,
My sister, yes.
sister. Livia
She is.
Caffagni. All of you are vocalists, and Livia is plays recorders, viola, and sings. Teodoro Tomasi, I wonder if he's related to the composer, voice, harp, and recorders. Matteo Zenatti, voice, harp, and tamburello. I hope I'm close. And Christophe Deligne, I hope, who plays organetto, and I want to chat about that instrument in a little bit. Here's let's just get it started with this. I can understand musicians, seeing a trumpet and becoming involved. I can see musicians finding a piano. But how did you both find the medieval Renaissance period, let alone the instruments? How about Claudia first?
I start. So we come from. I mean, we started to play together medieval music in 1986, but we came from different, little different. I mean, origin musically speaking. So I was a lute player because in my family already my father in the 50s was started to discover this instrument, and he was one of the first in Italy to do researches on this early ancient instrument. So in my childhood, my sister and I were used to listen to early music repertoire and to play early instruments. So at the age of 14, I already started to study with my father the lute, and then I went on with this instrument, and so early music was normal for my heritage, for my culture, from my family. But in 1986, we, for some occasion, we have been invited. I was invited with my little ensemble that was already living with the name of La Reverdie,
and because I make a little bracket. On the other side, me and my sister, who for many years was with us in La Reverdie. We started in Trieste to perform ancient music. I mean, she started. I was a child, so we. In a way, had the same story. So we started as very little child to listen to records of American ensembles. No? With so the real pioneer of ancient music are the Americans.
And so once in a while we do something right. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, you did actually, and then we met my sister and she and Claudia had this first little ensemble named La Reverdie. And in
1984, but we were performing basically first Renaissance music, not medieval music. But at a certain point in 1986, an agent asked us to prepare a program on Federico Hohenstaufen, who was an emperor, very important German emperor. Coming from the 13th century, and so end of 12th and 13th century, and so we decided why not to take this opportunity to do something about medieval music, and so we decided to involve our sisters because we are not enough to prepare a program, and so we started to work on this program devoted to the image of the figure of Federico Hohenstaufen. And after this, we did a tournée of 10 concerts in the south of Italy. And at the end of this experience, we thought, why not to go on? Because we got a lot of fun. We felt that we could work very well together on the music, and so we decided.
We were very young.
We were very young, we must say, and so we decided to go on. And in a short time, we started to record some CDs and to be invited to a very important festival in all of Europe. And so this is why we are here. And we still, after 34, I think, this years, we still are happy to work together and we get fun to work on this repertoire, which is huge because Middle Ages is a very long period, so we never stop to discover new music and new repertoire
to study. It's a long life studying.
Yeah, so.
Well, thank you very much for that. And again, I'm going to just ask if you can get a little closer together. For example, Beta, you tend to lean out of the frame. There we go. Because I don't want to lose this interview, and you don't want to have to re-record it. Okay, so we must keep you two very close together. That is absolutely fascinating. But also, as you have mentioned, you have been together as an ensemble all these years. Yeah. Has the personnel changed very much, or is it the same kind of group of people? Has it changed?
We cannot say that we are as we were 34 years ago. I mean, we changed a lot because our personal life changed, and also the approach to the music changed during this long period. Also the the way to work a bit. In the first years, I remember we were used to, for example, to prepare a new program. We were very young and we didn't have family, we didn't have children, so we could stay for 1 week all together, 2 weeks in a place, playing and singing and preparing. And this was very helpful, I think, because we create a language that we still today we are sharing, you know. But in the years things changed because we got married, we had children, we started also to teach, and so to do other things, sometimes also to collaborate with to do some other different music. But what is remaining, it's really I mean, I think that when we play and sing together, something happened. I mean, it's kind of miracle, I think.
But
and it works.
People have to know that when you
please move in a little bit. Can you move in just a little closer, please? Thank you. It's especially Beta that needs to come in a little bit. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
When you play, when you make this repertoire, you need to have a common language, musically speaking, because what you find on the paper is just a little part sometimes of the whole thing. So so there is a big work of reconstruction of the missing parts, and a big work on the choice of the instrumentation, of the tempo, of the colors. So you don't find written this line must be played by the viol, this line must be played by the recorder. So there is it's a kind of very personal interpretation of the repertoire, and of course the same piece performed by the Reverdie or by another ensemble can be completely different.
Yes.
So this is.
And thank you for bringing that up. It was one of my questions, because we want to remind people listening that we are looking practically at tablature, if you will, I presume, when you're going through these manuscripts. I'm using the word for lack of another word. And it is entirely up to you as an ensemble, as it was in the period and at the time, whoever's around, whatever the instrumentation is, working things out. Yeah? So, but
Sure.
what my original question was about the Matteo, Christoph, Theodora have been with you also all these years? No.
Matteo works with us at least
from 1994.
25 years, I think. So he was involved as a singer and as an instrumentalist with us, not just from the beginning, but few
1994,
later.
but not for all the programs. I mean,
sure.
The three of us, my sister and I and Elisabetta, we three are part of the original ensemble. And then we, starting from exactly 1994, we started also to work with other musicians. I mean, when the repertoire needed other
male
musicians,
singers, for example.
But with Matteo, we had a lot of program together, and so we can say that it's part of La Reverdie already since a lot of years too.
And Christoph Deline, for example, the organetto player, comes in occasionally, if I understand, for special pieces that you decide.
Yeah, he's a guest star. He's a guest star. Because we thought that of course if we want to do a monography on Francesco Landini's music, we needed a virtuoso of organetto, so a portative organ, as he was. He was the most as
Landini,
Francesco
sorry.
Landini was.
Yeah, sorry.
He was the most famous.
Yes.
He was known, all over Italy, well, also maybe out of the borders. He was really a star, and Christophe. We knew him, even if not personally, but from his recordings and his concerts. He has a special singing way of playing. I mean, he's an instrumentalist, but he's a singer, and so we were looking just for that, and so he was involved, and he. And it happened that I mean we felt really on the same on the same
wavelength.
Wave, yeah, it was as if we had always known him. It has been really a beautiful collaboration, and he didn't just simply play, but he composed missing parts on some pieces. He improvised. He's a big improviser, and he has an expressivity really. Like a singer.
Absolutely gorgeous on the piece we'll discuss that he plays in as well, and it struck me immediately. And more importantly, here I get to use a little bit of a quote that's from your fabulous, pardon there's some traffic that goes by occasionally, but from your really fabulous program notes. It's a great booklet. Yeah.
And as for Theodora, she's very young, and she has been my pupil in two master classes. And as soon as I saw that she could join us playing and singing in new project, and since 2 years I think she is collaborating with us constantly, because she is a very clever musician, and she is able to understand soon what we want from her, and she's also very propositive, and now she's collaborating with us very constantly,
happy.
And we are very happy, and we also are very happy when we have occasion to involve in our ensemble young people, because I think that it's important also to give this opportunity to young good musicians to have an experience with our to do a part of their way together with us.
You have touched on so many points. Once again, if you can get a little closer, I'm just a little nervous about losing part of your face here. It's just one of the problems with Skype. So I'm so glad you've worked together for all these decades, so you can be cuddly as I suggested. Well, let me read everything you have described. Exactly explains why. I'm going to read from Giovanni da Prato, describing Landini as playing his songs so sweetly, quote, that no one had ever heard such beautiful harmonies, and their hearts almost burst from their bosoms.
Yeah.
So, by the way, did my heart burst from my bosom? I can't remember. But the point is, the ensemble of La Reverdie. Have we spoken to the story? I thought that we spoke about something. Is there a story about that name, or have we covered it? La Reverdie.
Yeah, it means the coming back of the green season. So the coming back of the spring. Yeah, it's a name that this first ensemble in 1984 had. So with my sister and Claudia, and we were all very young. So the spring was still. So we had still yet a connection with the spring. And La Reverdie was that poetic form in Languedoc, in the French medieval
Now that helps.
poetry, where all those poems which were talking about the coming back of the spring, when were named Reverdie. So it's a poetic genre.
That was brilliant. Thank you very, very much. That's going to be very helpful for everybody. We've talked about the ensemble a little bit, its history, when you all came together, and how you've been playing together for so long. And basically, let me just jump in with a little bit of me as music critic, so that everyone out there, not only did you touch on the fact that the repertoire is huge, apparently, and mostly unknown. So you have a whole lifetime ahead of you to record this repertoire for us. But also musical society now is ready. Have you noticed how people are starting to listen to obscure symphonies by composers, or to other periods of music that really haven't been, people that didn't think they would have any interest in, something like that. So a great service. But again, what strikes me, not only about the acoustic in this little church that you made the recording in, which is perfection, even with a yummy, delicious echo and decay. It's just perfection in terms of that sound and sound decay. But just so everybody's clear, you need to be superbly blended singers as well as superbly blended instrumentalists. So it's, I would imagine, very difficult to get that sort of ensemble together. So it is a miracle. See?
So
let's move on to another question, and if we can, without getting too technical, I think it's really important to have a little discussion, a little overview of 14th century polyphony. Can you give me a little overview of your thoughts on this period, the 14th century? The tonality of the works, the modes involved, that it's so unique and so interesting, the medieval sound. Can either of you speak to that a little bit? Claudia? See?
Do you mean the music or the poetry? I haven't heard.
Right now I'm still on the music, and then we'll speak about his mastery of poetry, but just about that, the whole sound of the 14th century, so people can get an idea that might not be aware of what this sound is, these tonalities, these modes, and so on. Does that make sense?
Okay. So yeah, it is. So we have to say that 14th century in Italy specifically, we are speaking about a special genre that was style, I would say, that is normally named Ars Nova, taking this definition from French theory of music, but that we can keep it also to explain, to give the idea of Italian style. Ars Nova was the definition of a new way to think, to compose and also to write the music. In comparison with the style of Duecento music of the 13th century, that was defined from the theorists ars antiqua. So it was clear to the composers that at a certain point in the beginning of 14th century, we are speaking about the 20s more or less of 14th century, it was necessary to write, to find new way to write the music, because the styles were changing very fastly, and this is why
avant-garde.
Yeah, it was something and in Italy there is a very important movement, both from the side of poetry and from the side of musicians, composers, and this is why new genre were theorized and composed, like as ballate, madrigali, cacce, and mottetti. So 4 genres that and we have a lot of sources about this music, specifically mostly for madrigals, ballate, and cacce more than motets, and stylistically, we cannot speak about that. Speak. About tonality. It was not tonal music yet. It's more basically based on modal system, and the polyphony was based on the idea that the main pilots of the composition have to go on the main perfect intervals, so fifth octaves, unison, octave, and fifth. So all the music that you can listen to the CD has this, let's say, stones. Big point
Columns,
of columns. Basically made by these important perfect intervals, and all what is in between, it's a florid, sometimes very florid ornamentation of, that join these pilots. I don't know if it's enough clear. And Landini was also invented in a way a special cadence that we can, I can sing it, da, 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 this kind of flourishment with this kind of cadence, this kind of way to florid the jumping from the sensibile to the to the main final tonic accord, and this was so, he used it very often in his compositions and was so famous that we can find this kind of melody in the cadence and since also all over the 15th century and the 16th century we still find this, and is named cadenza alla Landini, Landini cadence, because he was the first who used it.
Let me try and catch up with you. Let me try and catch up with this conversation because it's fascinating for me as a professional musician also. But you, thank you for reminding me about Ars Antiqua and Ars Nova, which would in a way be the music of the church, and Ars Nova would be the avant-garde, as you said, the breakaway from liturgy to, and I'm getting there now, to, well, in this case, some very sensuous texts. Now there's sexual, sorry, I didn't mean to say that, sensual texts that deal with love and loss and so on, that would certainly not have been acceptable to Ars Antiqua, the music of the church.
Yeah, I say that Ars Antiqua is not only connected with the liturgical music or sacred music. We have also plenty of secular music with the Ars Antiqua style. I think it's more a difference, on the style of writing, of composing, than related to the contents, because we have a lot of liturgical music in 300, 400 music with a new style. I mean, it's not a matter of field but of style. They needed to write to have a more complex, more complexity in composition.
Elisabetta.
And many composers were used to write. One day they could write a wonderful Kyrie eleison, and the day after the same person should have written a really hot ballad. I mean, so the same composer could range from liturgical or secular music.
That's much clearer. Thank you very, very much indeed. Maybe we should look at, we need to remind everyone that Landini was also among the greatest poets of the period. Am I exaggerating? Certainly. Who was the king or somebody who gave, apparently it's controversial somewhat, but he won the great triumph, the laurel wreath of Venice, of all cities, the great sophisticated cosmopolitan
Probably,
sound.
probably he wanted as a poet more than musician. Yeah, it's not yet clear. Anyway, he's a great poet, and many of the texts of his music are his composition. I mean, he was used um, to write the music for his poems, or also to make musical sets to the poems of other poets, both. And he was and stylistically speaking, he is well inserted in the style of the dolce stil novo, that is the new poetry that came after the big the great Dante, no? And we in this CD we wanted to investigate if the poetry of Landini might give us any information, any hidden sign of his condition of blindness, because this so the title of the CD, the Eye of the Heart, is taken from a verse of one of his songs, and all the pieces actually speak about a blind love. It's not possible to see the beloved woman, and this actually is a kind of typical literary game of the dolce stil novo. But in Landini this happens we found many signs of this blindness, and sometimes it really seems to refer to something personal, and not only to a poetic tendency.
Very, very much
Passion.
so. And I think, I don't know whether we mentioned on air, but the idea that at the age of 7, smallpox, it's a miracle he survived in that period of humans were just beginning to try and figure out how the body worked. But he survived smallpox, but was blinded by the disease, just to make sure so everyone's clear. And also smallpox, I think we discussed, usually is a scarring disease. So I don't know, but his face probably was not attractive in some way. I'm just imagining. So these songs and his wonderful poetry are so moving, because coming from the heart indeed, one has to just imagine his feeling. He has such love and interest in women, and they're not responding. Am I okay so far on that idea? So it's very, very, very heartbreaking and bittersweet.
Well, I never had this thought about the scars. Probably he had scars, but luckily he could not see himself actually as well. So this is maybe a luck.
Even more
but he was famous. I think he had a so sweet, moving voice beside his majesty in playing. He was very often invited in social meetings. People really was willing very much, was desiring very much to hear him singing and playing, because it must have been an experience to attend to to his performances.
And we also have also to say that there are about other composers, there are very few details about their life. I mean, it's very difficult to reconstruct the biography of composers coming from 14th century. But in this case, maybe his fame, I mean, he was so well known everywhere in the place, basically in Florence when he was living, that in fact, we have a lot of documents, mainly in the literature, speaking about him. I mean, it's very particular, uncommon to have so many details about his life. I mean, maybe because he was really a great star, great virtuoso. Yeah.
As you said, he was apparently very famous and followed and very popular, and the quote I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation about how sweet and gorgeous his voice was. And I can't help but think of what I saw Itzhak Perlman the other evening. He's doing a very personal presentation about his life and so on, and Itzhak refers continually to this thing, the phenomenal violinist, and yet people in his youth looked at him seated, looked at him with his polio, and generally said, oh, it's just too bad, no career there. So, I mean, what I'm saying is Landini also overcame these things. He was a wunderkind, if you will, a genius, beautiful voice, and yet always people must have seen, he's blind.
Maybe they being invalid give them even something more in their inner life. Who knows?
Yeah. Now I just realized that this was not, and forgive me because this is a little over my head, but that this is not a particular series that he put together. I thought at first maybe he had assembled these songs, but apparently you made this selection, the 14 ballate and the one madrigal. How on earth, now that I understand that, I can see you poring over tons of sheets of music. How did you make the decisions?
So we have to say that, also because...
Please get closer again. I don't want to lose Elisabetta's face here. Go.
We have to say that Landini was not only so famous, but also very prolific, because we have about 200 pieces written by him, while, for example, there are other composers that appear in the same sources with 20, 30 pieces, or even less, 10, 13, 15. So, I mean, it's for sure the most prolific composer of his age, at least on the basis of the sources that we have nowadays, that arrived until so far. And so how we did the choice? The first step was as soon as we have decided the theme of the CD of the collection, we just read all the texts. So already on this basis we have, did a big selection, because Landini also wrote pieces on moral themes. A lot of pieces are about morality. I mean, you have to behave like that or like that, and not have a bad behavior. About, there are a lot of pieces, and in this case, all those pieces were put apart, and then the others we started to read the music, and we read, and we just with the first reading, we figure out how they could have sound going on studying them, and so we reduced a lot the number of pieces.
It had also an aesthetical criterion, no? to choose. I mean, we not only the interesting things, but we looked just to the more for us to the most moving pieces, and well, everything is beautiful. I mean, I have still to find one piece not beautiful by
By
Landini.
Landini.
He's like Brahms, you know. You get, so, yeah, there's nothing.
Let me wrap
Nothing
my
ugly.
mind around that. That what you have just said. If I can paraphrase, the idea that he was maybe the Brahms of the 14th century in terms
Yeah.
of lyricism and beauty and embellishment and all that. I'm just off the top of my head. That's an amazing remark. Gives us a really firm idea of how important Landini was in his time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Otherwise, we'll be talking for. Yes, Claudia, you had something.
Yeah, no, then I wanted to say also that as soon as we decided the pieces, then we did there was another step, which was to choose the source. I mean, the manuscript, where to find the pieces, because many pieces are in many different sources, many different manuscripts. So, for example, in two cases, we choose of pieces, we choose the source where we find the same piece with three voices instead of two, because this happens many often in the sources to have, for example, the same piece in one manuscript copied with two voices, two lines, and in another manuscript with three lines. And so we also have, as soon as we decided the pieces, then we decided in which manuscript and with which characteristics, because each manuscript presents differences, you know. So there have been also a kind of paleographic work about sources, and this is also another important step of the research before going and meet all together and finally play and sing and decide all the things about tempo, about the instrumentation, about who sings what, and again. So the preparation, what is before the first real rehearsal, it's a long process. It's a long process.
And thank you for describing that so clearly, because again, as per a little bit earlier, I I hope I'm correct in knowing from my own experience as a music student going through the Grout, which was the famous history book of music at the time. There is not much to work with, especially this early. There's see what am I correct here? There's not much to work with. You do have to decide colors and instruments, and
Yep.
maybe even filling out the lines, as you say, and choosing editions, a three-voice edition or a two-voice edition. So I want everyone to understand that it's not like what we know in modern music. Things are left very free and open, are they not? For you to, and thus it takes a lot of time to kind of organize how you will present each piece. Am I close?
Yeah, this is what also is fascinating for us. I mean, we are attracted from this kind of freedom that we get from this old repertoire, and I might say that also. Sorry, then you.
No.
I mean, it's interesting to say that at the end. When we decide the source, we also do the transcription. We don't use editions. I mean, and this gives us also freedom in choosing the manuscript, as I told before, because normally the printed transcription that are available from musicologists choose one source, and so you are not. You have not the freedom to choose your the source that you feel.
Can't compare.
I mean, yeah, you feel it more interesting for our point of view, and so doing us the transcription give us also the freedom to do this choice, and so yeah, freedom is one of the reasons why we still are working on this repertoire.
And if I may speak briefly, everybody should know that hearing a little delay, all of our interview and my review when I get it written, I'm a little late on reviews, a little behind, but and also samples from the CD and so on. When it all goes up at performingartsreview.net, people will hear this. But what I was getting at is you have been able to, with this freedom, to create. This is the impression I had from the beginning. Your own sound. You are a unique ensemble. See or no?
Yeah, I think.
I think so.
I mean, I think that if someone hears on the radio our performance, they can say, "Ah, this is the Reverdie."
I think so.
I think
See,
we have our style.
and again, to me, hearing you for the first time, that's the great joy. I hope that delay is going to be okay, but it's such a great joy for me to discover you.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you,
and
thank
and
you.
what I'm saying is that it was just instantly immediate to me as an observer with my ears that this was just a unique ensemble, a unique approach, everything about it. So I understood about that period and how you have had these kinds of freedoms. It's fabulous. We're starting to run out of time a bit, but so let me speak to a couple of the ballates on this CD and have you speak to them. We have agreed, Claudia and Elisabetta and I have agreed that my Italian is hopeless. So what I'm going to do is speak in English the title, and then I'll ask you to tell me a little bit about these pieces. What I'm looking at, and I have multiple X's after this particular wonderful uh, ballate, I think, Sweet Lady, and this is the first line, Sweet Lady, now that I must leave your lovely, gracious countenance, which would be Tante Belice, something like that. Questa
Tante bellezza.
Yeah. See why I don't want to try and say it in Italian? Can you tell me a little bit about describe and discuss this marvelous instrument also? Are we making sense? Am I making sense for you?
So this is the piece where actually we made a kind of a strange choice for the instrumentation of this piece. It's a ballata with two voices. One is the tenor, so the ground voice is called tenor, and the upper voice is called cantus. But we chose to give the cantus to the instrument of Christophe Deligne, so to the organetto, and we sing together. So the three of us, me, Claudia, and Theodora, we sing the tenor, which is let's say the bass, no, of the voice. So this is a little bit that might be considered arbitrary, but since we have this wonderful organetto singing organetto of Christophe, it's like as he was saying words and not notes. We perform in this let's say strange way with the singing instruments and with the voice on the ground voice.
And in this piece, basically because the organetto takes the main voice, the upper voice, which is the main one, the more complicated one, to introduce this choice. The organetto also perform an improvisation, and it's interesting because when we did the recording, he improvised in different ways all the times. So I mean, at the end, he chose one of the versions because it is a really improvisation. It's not something written. I mean, he really improvised.
Is that the opening of the piece? Yeah, but
yeah,
the
also,
opening
yes.
solo.
A kind of introduction, a solo just improvised to create to give the atmosphere of the piece, and then to bring us as singers to go inside the piece and go on with the piece inside.
And if I can add just a little detail of the text, this is another interesting thing, because he's saying in a strophe, he says, thank you, love, because you perché mi hai figurato nella mente. So because you because
Sure.
you structured in my mind this great beauty. So he's not talking about seeing with the eyes, but seeing with the mind. So it's this is another hidden sign.
Pure genius. Pure
Yeah,
genius. Let's see. Let me see what else, because again we're gonna wind it down here in a bit. But let's see. How about number 15 on the CD, which I'll speak in English. The first line: "Death at this point, the best thing that can happen." And this also speaks to that kind of romantic idea of the 12th, 13th, 14th century, does it? It's kind of always, oh, if I can't have you, I shall throw myself off the bridge or something. Can you speak to number 15? And please pronounce it in Italian for me so everybody can hear how marvelous it is.
Yeah, guarda una volta in Cha, which means look at this side for
Let me just interrupt
time.
Can I just interrupt for a moment? It looks like the camera the computer may have moved a little bit. Can we if we can just get you a little closer together, because I really want this one to work. Yes, except that I think, forgive us everybody, we got to make sure we get this straight. But what I'm seeing is, Claudia, if you could, is there anything about literally moving the machine itself, the computer itself, a tiny bit? No, I think that's good enough. Sorry, I hate to keep having to remind you. It's such an interruption. Now, please, would you mind starting to again about death at this point, the best thing that can happen to me? Number 15.
This piece is a ballata, the last piece of the recording. So we wanted to give a sense of joy in a way. I mean, energy, I would say. This ballata is with 3 voices. And all the voice has the text, because one thing that we have to say about the in general of this repertoire, that not all the lines have a text. So this means for our interpretation of this indication of the sources, that when there is no text, most probably was played and not sang. So this is why in some pieces you will hear, for example, a line or 2 lines just played with instruments.
That's right.
But in this case, all the 3 voices are underlaid with the text, so we have the text, and so we decided to sing with the 3 voices, 2 female voices and 1 male voice, and all of us also play meanwhile he's singing. So we are playing and sing, and in a certain point in the middle of the piece, also the other 2 musicians, so the organetto and the harp, I think, or the recorder and the harp, yes, the recorder, 2 recorders and the organetto, so all pipes, let's say, instrument, wind instrument, come in the piece and create even more, I would say, energy in the piece. So it's the maximum that we can produce as sound, because of 3 voices that also are playing, the 3 musicians, so are 3 plus 3 and the other 3. So we are playing and singing as we were 9 instead of 6.
And also we've discussed that this music is modal from that period, not tonal. I misspoke in a way. I used a sort of 20th century, 19th century word. But help, where was I? But also, I just forgot. Hang on. Well, actually, I'm going to move on to number 14 because it speaks kind of to what I meant. 14 is an a cappella piece, is it not? That's the through no fault of mine. I can see.
Mortoramai, yeah, but you were speaking about 15 or 14?
Well, we were on 15, and I've frankly forgotten what I was got lost in my listening to you. So
Yeah.
since I have no question that I can remember about that one, let's move. Oh, and you, by the way, you have anticipated me on several of the other points. So you have actually already answered several questions I did have. But just to look at number 14, and entirely, which is through no fault of mine, I can no longer enjoy the lovely sight you once made possible. I want to say that in Italian so we can all swoon.
Morto oramai de misero dolente.
Misero dolente. Ah.
Yes,
It's very
this is very full of grief and pain. It is really hard piece, very moving.
Very.
And we just for that we decided also to be more free to perform it a cappella, but it's not written differently as the former one, as number 15. I mean, we might have been free to do it with instruments. Who knows? And no, we tried, and we made also a deep work. We try really to ruminate the so to chew and to understand really also the sound of the words. Well, we are Italian, so for us it's of course easier than for a foreign singer, but even for us that it's our language, but sometimes you really need to enjoy the sound of the word to express something more deeply, and this is and sometimes with Landini this is not that easy, because in his texture of the composition, he fractions, so he cuts the words in the single voice. So if, for example, the soprano, so the cantus primus, sing a word, sings a syllab, then you find a pause, and your syllab is sung by the second voice, and then so another pause. So there is really a three-dimension kind of three-dimension style effect in the three voices, because the same word is pronounced by the three voice, but not in the same moment, no? And so these so to make the people understand what we are saying, you must really be very clear with these words, and make these effects very evident. And so it's really a kind of recitar cantando ante litteram. There is really some kind of madrigalism, so of Renaissance, of what will be the Renaissance style, even if we are still in the Middle Ages.
So he was looking into the future. He was one of those composers with a trend.
He had really something focused in 100 years later.
I'm gonna ask about one more piece, and then we're gonna have to end it, or people are gonna go and have lunch instead of listening. I'm speaking of number 9 on the CD. Sorry about all the traffic noise. Sundays can be awful. Number 9 on the CD. It says, I'll speak in English. For an unreal lover, I suffer grief. Oh, lady, I would be happy to die. I mean, that whole, it's so moving. Can you say it in Italian for us? Number 9.
Number 9. Divenno gli occhi miei.
Oh,
is this, yeah, divennero gli occhi mie nel partir duro, lagrimosi e dolenti dello sguardo.
grazie,
Questo.
grazie. So gorgeous. Tell us about this piece. By the way, I want to mention that what I love the most about number nine on the CD, that at the very end, that suspension that finally resolves. There's a just out of nowhere, this at the very end, a beautiful, beautiful suspension that stays there, floats for a bit, and then finally resolves down. Anyway, go ahead and
Yeah,
tell us
here
about that.
also it's full of Landini cadences. Really, it's all the endings of the phrase. You can find this typical mark, trademark of Landini in the in the endings of the phrases. But they speak also of of his eyes that are. That become full of tears, where he knows that his beloved is leaving, but he says, but my heart that feels the hardest pain, looks for the peace. So he tries, anyway. Always Landini finds a solution for his pain. I mean, not just a consolation, but a
Peace,
solution.
real
Yeah,
peace,
peace,
and
peace.
that kind of attitude, let alone the
Yeah.
words he
Maybe
chooses. Go ahead.
maybe there's only one piece where he did really don't find any solution, and he would like love only to die, because he doesn't see any possibility to relief, which is the number 7, Gran pianto agli occhi. In this piece, really there is no hope for no.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the only piece where he really doesn't see any possibility to get better,
Number 7.
and so the only solution is to die, and
But very strangely, for a modern ear, this is an F major, so called. I mean, if we judge it like if we have a tonal perspective, which is not possible, but the saddest text is in a kind of major tonality. So we see that. So the aesthetic is completely the opposite sometimes.
And that's the magic and mystery and grace of this composer, what you have just described.
So, mm,
And again, in this, the most hopeless of the ballette, uh, somehow the accidental key area, for lack of another way to explain, is this F, this wonderful feeling of F. It's wonderful. I think we'd better bring it down. Let me go up to the top. We're going to run through what this. Yeah, it's just an absolutely gorgeous CD. Congratulations. I've been speaking with singer lutenist Claudia Caffagni, who is nodding as we speak, and also Elisabetta de Mircovich, uh, violist. I'm having a hard time pronouncing the words. I want to say violist, but it's not. Anyway, and about their marvelous recording with the ensemble La Reverdie, an Italian group. It's really now, if I understand you correctly, you are specializing now in medieval and Renaissance repertoire because it's so huge. You're on a roll. The sound is superb. Singing, instrumental choices. We've discussed this, how you have, as an ensemble, made very important choices because you can. The music, what's on the paper allows you to make these decisions and choices about colors, about instrumentation, and the singing blend and voice leading is just marvelous. The Eye of the Heart. It's an Arcana Recordings, 2019, and I will certainly put all of this up so people can run them by the CD. I'm going to be spending the rest of the day, doing things around the house, and I'm just going to sort of enmesh myself in this world of the medieval period that is just a whole other universe. It's another planet. You are swept away into some other world. Have we anything that I've missed? What, do you want to speak to anything?
Oh, well, we would like, and we have never performed in USA actually.
Yeah.
So we would like to bring so some Middle Ages to your
Italian
country.
Middle Ages.
Italian Middle Ages, yeah.
And there aren't many of you. It's not like it's an orchestra. So thank you very much for putting that out, and we'll see if we can get some nibbles going. But really, just a superb ensemble. And again, the great joy for me is making so many discoveries as I, browse various CDs that are coming out. And the repertoire is amazing. The ensembles around the world, artists and so on. The biggest treat is for me. Okay.
Thank you.
Many thanks. Grazie, grazie. Elisabetta de Mircovich and Claudia Caffagni, who are the founders, I think, of La Reverdie, the ensemble, Renaissance and medieval ensemble. Many thanks. See you then.
Bye.